Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast, the podcast designed to be your companion in the journey of self-discovery. I'm Barbara Thompson, your host, and a dedicated therapist. I'm the founder and owner of Self-Care Studio, a private counselling practice. With my clients, in courses that I create, on this podcast, I'm committed to ensuring that you have the support that you need. I created this podcast as a space for you to feel a sense of connection and a reminder that you're not alone in this thing that we call life, this adventure. This podcast is your weekly reminder to trust yourself, live life authentically, and embrace the path that is uniquely yours. Together, we'll explore ways to break free from people-pleasing, overthinking, allowing you to claim your time and energy to live life on your terms. You'll be joined by myself as I take you through some episodes, or during the year, I'll have some special self-care experts as guests on my podcast. So if you're ready to step into a life that's truly for you, join me on this journey. Let's navigate the twists and turns of life together, and more importantly, live your life for you. So thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with me today. Let the Studio Chat begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Studio Chat Podcast. My name is Barbara Thompson, and I'm the host. And I'd love to introduce you to Caroline Dunne. We're actually over in the UK. Early morning start for Caroline this morning. And she is an Internal Family Systems Practitioner from Fresh Air and I'd love to welcome you to my podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I love that you're here because I personally have not heard of internal family systems therapy before. So this is going to be a learning lesson for me, as I'm sure maybe with some of my listeners. But what I love about my podcast is I love bringing different ways of self-care, but different ways of us being able to care for ourselves in different seasons. And it's just such an honor to have you from the UK, giving your expertise and your profession to share with my audience. So thank you.
Well, I love talking about IFS, so any chance that I get, I will.
And IFS. So from now on, we will just say it as IFS. And I find that I'm struggling saying that, so I'm not too sure why, but we're going to keep IFS. So I'm sure, would you, before we start, give my listeners a little bit of an intro about Caroline and what has got you to be an IFS practitioner?
Yeah, so it's been a bit of a winding route, which I don't think is unusual these days, right? But I started life studying biochemistry, so science background, knew pretty quickly that a sort of career or a life in science wasn't for me. So I took that biochemistry and went into teaching. And I was actually a teacher in a secondary school. So that's ages 11 to 18 for 10 years. And that gave me two big things. It probably shaped who I am as a person, but it also lifted the cover on some struggles internally and some struggles that I saw those young people go through. Mm. And I knew then that I didn't want to stay in teaching. There was these deeper issues and deeper struggles that I felt education was making worse in many ways. And so when I started exploring, right, I'm going to change career, what's it going to be? I landed in health and fitness initially, like around movement, yoga, breathwork, meditation, because I saw our young people struggling with their emotions, with their mental health, with anxiety, and a whole host of other things, say around body image and food and social media, and all of this compounded. And I felt like when I went into the health and fitness arena, that sort of stage, that area, I was then getting these same sort of issues and difficulties, but 20, 30, 40 years down the line. And at that point, they were going, I want to live like this. I've struggled with this for how long? What can I do? And as I worked, this is one-to-one with clients, I began to also realize, see, this isn't even the end of the story, that the body is powerful, right? And we're taught to to force ourselves from it, not to trust it in a lot of our education systems. And therefore, my work in health and fitness is a real door opener for that, right? Because it allows this connection with the body to be shaped again, to a relationship to be built again. But I was also hearing other things, and especially around nutrition. So my approach to nutrition has always been, I don't have the answers, you do. Let's work together to find them. And that's when I started hearing parts. And what I mean by that is, if I was in a nutrition session, I might hear a part of them say, I just have no control around food. And I feel completely out of control. There's nothing I can do to stop this. And then I feel shame or I feel despair. And you'd hear these very distinct emotions and patterns of behavior that nutrition coaching in and of itself, I felt didn't quite touch what was needed. There's something bigger going on here. And that's how I landed on IFS, Internal Family Systems, through knowing that there is this deeper level that we can access that actually means the what of what we eat, or how we actually exercise, or how we manage stress in our lives. It's actually the last piece of the puzzle, and becomes the easy last piece of the puzzle when actually we've explored a little bit deeper and done some work and say some healing work there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can resonate with that, and with the journey too. Like, I'm in a profession, you could have stayed there, but you felt there was that longing need within you. So when you said you work alongside your clients because you believe that the clients know themselves better than anyone and they trust themselves, in that moment you did such a beautiful thing. You were like, teaching's not for me. So that was really nice that you have already actioned what you practice, what you preach, basically.
Yeah. And it was that contrast, right, of in a education environment, you're the one that's essentially in control. You're the responsible one, which means you're constantly putting out effort to try and get young people to fit the mold. And I was aware there was tension there, right?
Yeah.
That takes a lot of effort, and also it does our young people a disservice because it doesn't put the power within them. And coaching does, and therapy does, right? It puts them back in the driving seat, in the place of, I know me, I'm going to choose what's right for me. And we didn't teach them that in school.
Well, we're never taught that. We're always I think a lot of people can resonate that the life that they're living previously or currently is a life that they think they're full of, I think, I should, I must, I have to, or out of obligation.
Yeah. And I find those, I think, I must, I should, those, I have so much curiosity around them. Where are they coming from? Who's saying these things, right, inside of us?
Yeah. It's interesting when I catch my clients saying that, they don't realize they're saying it. It's so in their subconscious that I'm like, did you just hear your language? And they'll sit back in their chair and go, oh, they always pull that same face. Oh no, Barbara's getting me to, self-awareness again, hang on, reflection. And they sit there and I said, just have a couple of minutes. And they'll go, oh my God, I said that thing again. Like, it actually, they sit back in their chair and they take a few moments, and we don't realize as we're talking, yes, but half the time the words as we're talking could be one or two words that are really keeping us feeling stuck.
Yeah. And in my work now, I ask, who is that come from? Which part of that are we currently speaking to? And IFS is based on two really simple ideas, right? Rather than one mind, we actually have many parts of us. So personality is multiple, and it always has been. We're born with many different parts of us. And all those parts are good. They all have a positive intention. They are all trying to help us. And just those two things in and of themselves, I think, are game changing. Because how can you sit with someone with, say, patterns of behavior, whether they feel unhelpful or harmful in their outcomes, if you know the parts of them have this best intention for them, that changes everything in how you approach and how you speak to those parts and how you befriend them, because they're trying to help, right? And so parts of us, I liken it to there's a bit of a bus driving analogy here. It can help a little bit to see what I mean. So imagine a bus full of passengers, right? And at the start of an IFS process, then you might have those passengers like, being fairly chaotic. So they might be trying to fight each other. They might have very different ideas about the direction that this bus is going in. They might be teaming up and being allies, and they might have some enemies on the bus as well, ones that they try and shove away and shut down, etc. And those are the parts of us. And what we do in IFS is introduce them to the driver of the bus. And the bus is you. You are not your parts. You might have a part who is anxious, but that is not all of you. The anxiousness, the anxiety is not all of you. It's just a part of you. So if we can start to introduce them to the driver of the bus, the true you, then that offers two things. It offers the fact that the driver can actually lead the bus. It can have a relationship with all of those different parts of us and hear them and know who they are and their best intention, and they can still choose the direction. Where are we going? And it also, by introducing them to this driver of the bus, can provide healing. So all of us have some very young parts. I know the words inner child is often thrown around a lot, and I would say there's not one inner child, there's very many for lots of it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one to think of. Yeah.
And some of those inner children can be healed by knowing the driver of the bus.
Yeah. Oh, this is so interesting, because I know, again, language and words, a lot of us are really quick to go, if you're in a group with all your friends, I want you to think about, who are you? Are you the loud one? Are you the one that talks too much? Are you the anxious one? Are you the stressed one? Are you the OCD one? Are you, in our lifestyle that we live in now, we're quite quick to label ourselves with these different people on the bus. And I loved how you said, yeah, you may have parts of you're anxious, and you may have parts of feeling stressed, or parts of overthinking, or parts of not having a good relationship with food, but it doesn't define you because it's not the driver.
Yeah. It's not the whole you, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. So take us back to you being obviously working in the health industry, hearing these words and people really not, missing that boat, like really not being able to be served and helped. What was it that really solidified the IFS and was like, yes, I'm going to do it?
So I initially, and this is tracking back a few years ago, and came across IFS on a podcast. So full circle here, right?
Love it.
Yep. That person was talking about IFS, like what it is, and they also demoed it. So there was a demo of the process of IFS, and it felt like for me a little bit of a light bulb going on, because IFS isn't talking, it's experiencing something within yourself. And that, it's like a light bulb, and it made a lot of sense, because a lot of this language we have anyway, right? Quite often in conversation we say things like, a part of me feels really excited about this, but a part feels a bit anxious. So it makes sense, right, that we have these very many different thoughts and feelings, often all at the same time. And that's because we've got parts. And it was him. Yeah, we've got parts. Now, as you cannot no longer think of anything without thinking of parts, it's like this filter that changes the way you see the world. Every time you're talking to someone, you're talking to a part of them, which is amazing.
Yeah, I've got parts running around in my brain, but I've also got the fact that I've got multiple inner children inside of me. And so it's kind of right now I'm going, wow, this is really cool, because it's in a different way I wouldn't have never have thought of.
And it also means that IFS is, fancy term here, but it's non-pathologizing, meaning you don't put a label on someone. You don't say, for instance, anxiety disorder, because we're saying all parts are good and they are trying to help. Whether their outcomes are unhelpful or harmful, right? They're trying to help. So we say it's non-pathologizing. And that includes, like addictions and fight flight responses and dissociation and rage. These are all parts and they're all trying to help.
Well, it makes sense, because when you look at addiction stuff, sometimes it's seen, so people have seen it growing up, so it's normal. But part of it is there's something inside you that you're avoiding, or you've pushed down, or it's true. Like, there's always a reason why we do what we do. And that's very true. And anxiety helps us, from a caveman point of view, is anything that's fight or flight or anxious is actually a factory setting in our bodies that's been designed for a world that we don't live in now.
Yeah.
But it all does help us. Yes, I love that.
Yeah. Would it help to maybe describe some sort of the types of parts that we can go into?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And often when
there are like 100 parts. I'm worried now. How many parts are there?
I don't count. I'm sure there's an analytical part of me that would love to line them all up and count them, but I try and resist that temptation. I'm just going to describe a couple of types of parts, because I feel that could be helpful. As I know that when I listened to the first podcast ever about IFS and this is being done, it sparks something inside me. There can be that moment of recognition. So as describe these parts that you feel like, oh yeah, like I've got, say, I can recognize that. So I tend to think of parts in two layers. We have this top level of parts, and these I'm going to call our protectors. Okay. So our protectors, they come in two different flavors. We've got our managers, and they're quite often the ones who run the show day to day. And so our managers, ones we might recognize, are things like our critics, our inner critics, our controllers, our caretakers, if we have caring roles in our lives, right? Analyzers, like quite rational thinking, productive parts, and worriers. They're quite proactive. They're planning. They're concerned about status quo and how we're perceived. And their motto is, if I can plan my way forward, never again will I feel what perhaps I felt in the past.
Oh, yeah, control.
Mm-hmm.
Certainty and control, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are managers.
Yeah.
And also on this top level of protectors, we have firefighters. So firefighters are part of us who are reactive. And they step in at crucial moments when the system, and by system, I mean us, like the whole of us, are in danger of being overwhelmed, flooded with an emotion. Mm-hmm. We might see these firefighters in addictions, in rage, in fight, flight, freeze and fawn responses, and dissociation. So they step in at this when the fire's gone up in the system, right? And firefighters, I have so much love for them because they're hated inside and out. A lot of these behaviors are perceived as quite extreme, right? And they're often polarized with the managers. So our managers shame us from within, like, how could you do that, etc., etc. So they're hated from inside and without, but they're the ones who are stepping into our system and essentially saving us in that moment, right? From this threat, this fear of big, overwhelming emotions or experiences, often that have come from our past. Yeah, so the next level is what IFS would call exiles, and what other work might call, say, inner child, or other various terms, right? So exiles, they don't have to be, but they are often very young little parts of us who experience something that at the moment was way too much without a compassionate witness to help them.
Yeah.
So that might be a trauma. it might be something that's ongoing. And they're like these little capsules of pain in our system, right? And for the safety of the system, then they get shut away, like literally exiled. They get pushed down and said it's not safe for this emotion, this young little part of us to be here. And they stay stuck there with these protectors managing them, right? And pushing them down. All exiles want is to be heard. All they want is to be heard. And if they're not heard, they can get louder and louder and more coming up to the surface, because they've got these big emotions, right? They've got these needs that were never met back then. And so you get this kind of push-pull dance between these very young capsules of pain within us and older parts who try and manage that. And I give you one example of this. So I don't know if you've ever come across if I start crying, I'll never stop.
I hear that.
Classic exhale versus protector dynamic. The crying is the exhale, right?
Yeah.
That hasn't been witnessed. The fear of the protector is, if I let this exhale out, then we are going to be a mess and destroyed. We're just going to cry and it's never going to end. And so that's the fear. So it shuts down this exhale and says that's never going to happen. So the process of IFS becomes getting to know the protectors, befriending them, honoring them, appreciating them, saying, you are amazing in this system. I'm so glad you're here, so that they can trust you to go to the exiles and witness what needs to be witnessed and release. And again, that for me is where IFS completely is different from many, not all, but many different types of therapy, because there's a process for witnessing and releasing and therefore healing. I hesitate to use that term because healing is thrown around in the sort of therapy space and coaching space a lot, isn't it, right? But it's genuine healing of these exiles is what IFS provides.
That's the only word you could use. And it's interesting too, because I feel like when you're talking about the top tiers and then the bottom part, you've only explained one part. I know a lot of people can resonate with this. I definitely can myself. It feels like anything to do with the health or the medical field or the mental health field is, rather than they're putting the Band-Aid approach, rather than finding out what the cause is and going deep, it's just like, oh, we'll just do the fluffy stuff on top. So I feel like IFS is great because you're giving yourself permission to go deeper, and everything stems, like from me as a therapist, what I see is, when you go and see a therapist, it's never about, I don't want to say this to freak people out, but when you go and see a therapist about something, 9 times out of 10, it's not about the thing you're seeing them. A good therapist will go down and go, actually, it's because of this. And people will go, oh my God, yeah, I forgot about that. It's kind of so I feel like this is really connecting with me of what I do with my clients too, but on a personal note, that how many people, not me personally, but I know a lot of people have said, great example, if I cry, I won't be able to stop. But also, everyone's gone through some tough stuff in their life, and it's in a little capsule, in a little box, locked away, because we just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah. And that makes sense, right? Because often there's some sort of established sense of status quo or coping, like life can be okay, right? And we can fear taking the lid off the box. But I think, therefore, IFS offers a real message of hope in that, right?
Oh, big message of hope. Yeah, so that's exile. Have you got another one on that next level for us?
Yeah, let me give you, so exiles are that level, but I'll give you another example as well, which might sound familiar to many people, everyone. A part of me wants to say everyone will resonate with this one. Shame. So shame is another example of an exile. And a dynamic that's common to see there is the exile holds shame, and the protector would therefore criticize and almost like mimic often it's someone that they've experienced shaming them. So you've got shame, and then almost like a part who shames inside, that criticizes, that protects that little part who holds the burden of shame.
Shame. So I think shame is quite linked to human condition. There's two things that I come across all the time, and the more I learn about myself and my clients in therapy, we all don't feel good enough, and we all want certainty. Like they're the two core things I find that I work with people. And it's interesting, shame can come from I think part of it, like that core need of like, I just never feel enough. I'm not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I think most people could resonate with that. I know I do. And
Yeah.
in my IFS work, I've worked with some of that. And I know this can sound kind of weird. And I definitely, a part of me always names whether I'm facilitating IFS or whether I'm doing IFS myself, like in the process myself, I have a part that goes, this is weird. Because the thinking parts of you often can never get there by themselves, right? What we do is we actually connect with the part. And in some of my own personal work with my own therapist around not good enough, some of that tracked back to toddler age and pre-birth. Like that's how deep we can go with IFS. And again, a thinking part wants to name that as like, that is trippy and totally weird. And yeah, it is.
It is. But yeah, I get it.
That's what was needed at the time in the system. And we just followed that.
It got you through. Wow, that's interesting. Even pre-birth, as I mean, in the womb or even before the womb?
That was in the womb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because some people with different modalities take it like before you're even in the womb, and that's a little bit for me. Ooh, I'm getting with it, but okay. Wow, so this is how powerful and self-healing and emotional healing and self-healing. I'm hearing a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Healing is always from within, right? The role of the IFS practitioner or therapist is actually really about being in the process yourself. Because if I'm guiding someone inside, I don't want to be guiding someone inside from a part of me that has an agenda, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want a thinking part of me saying we're going here. I don't want a caretaking part saying I want to help this person feel better. So actually my process is about who's present within me, hearing them. Can we soften so that we can just be fully present with this person with whichever part they are with?
That would take some practice, I imagine, because with our brain, you've got, when you're a practitioner or a therapist, you have imposter syndrome. You have, obviously, you can relate to people. So then, if they're going through something, you may have a flashback of, oh gosh, that happened to me when I was 10 years old, because we're human. But you describing how you actually have to, and that's a sign of a good therapist or a practitioner, is it's not about you. It's nothing to do with you. You're serving someone, you're helping them. You don't tell people what to do. You don't, we guide them, but they know themselves better than anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually, therefore, the insight never comes from you, because everything that all of the information is coming from the
inside never comes from you.
It always comes from the person inside of themselves. So if I'm a practitioner, insight doesn't come from me.
Yeah.
The information, the healing, the etc. is all from within. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So exile and shame. Nice.
Yeah. So I just want to invite those parts who might be listen to this and say, this is weird. Yes, it is. And that's totally okay. And I'm with that.
That's cool that you can talk about it and say what it is, because that's great. That just normalizes it. And that normalizes how you felt about this before you were a practitioner learning about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we talked about the different parts. What's the next step?
Next step, if you would like, is to do a little bit of IFS.
Okay, let's do some IFS.
Are you open to that?
Yeah, we can do. Well, since that you shared with us that when you listened to the podcast about IFS, you got a lot out of it listening to the demo. I think it's a good idea for us to do a demo. And I will be a guinea pig, and I'll be the driver of the bus.
Yeah. Yeah.
With all my little children on the bus. There's probably quite a few of them.
Mm-hmm. You're so welcome. And just going to name two things in that. The first one is it's always based on consent. At every level, with every part, we always ask for permission. And it means we don't go where we don't have permission, right?
Yeah.
And things don't have to be spoken out loud. And this can be really helpful. Obviously, this is a podcast, you potentially have people listening to this. So what matters is you hear what's said inside you, but that doesn't mean things have to be said out loud.
Okay.
So how does that feel?
Good. All right. I don't know what I'm walking into, so here we go. Everyone, you're coming along with me. Let's go.
Amazing. Okay, so we were kind of chatting a little bit before this, weren't we? And we said that perhaps there's a part that you would like to get to know a bit better.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to name that a little bit at all?
By memory, I think it was to do with like me growing and self-exploration, and you might have to remind me here what I said, because I was very much in flow when I said that to you, and that's why I can't remember it, is because I literally just said it from the heart.
Yeah. So it kind of in this process of growth right now, there's like this hardworking, striving part that's trying to grow.
Correct. Perfect.
Does
Yeah.
that feel like it fits?
Yeah, definitely.
Great. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to slow things down a little bit. Okay. And we're going to start to send that attention inside. Now, at this point, you can have eyes open, eyes closed, a mixture of both, whatever's going to help just bring some focus inside of you.
Okay, I'm going to close my eyes.
Just going to take a few breaths there initially. Not with the message to any part to say they have to calm down, but just as a presence, I'm here. I want you to notice, first of all, if there's any concern about getting to know this hardworking, efforting growth part. So now see if you can start to notice how you're experiencing this part, this hardworking part. And that can be words, pictures, sensations, colours.
Whoa. Can I tell you what's going on right now?
Yeah.
It's so weird. So kind of, I guess you'd say kind of my third eye or around my eyes is all of a sudden like red.
Mm-hmm. So we've got this red colour around the eyes, the eyebrows.
Yeah, just around my eyes, like, from one eye to the other, like a strip.
Yeah.
It's all just red.
A strip of red. Great. Is
It's
it okay to
moving?
It's moving? Amazing. Is it okay to be noticing that?
Yeah, it seems powerful. It was just very strong. As soon as you said just breathe and just, as you said something about colors or something, I was just like this red.
Mm-hmm. So staying present there with that moving strip of red, right? See if there's anything else you notice about it.
It's a bit of green that came in, like almost like a green, this is weird. Yep. Like a green, what do you call it? Like a shrub, like a hedge. I got a bit of that. This is really weird.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Just kind of notice a little bit of green.
Green and
And
red.
green and red moving, right? Yeah. Stay present there.
Definitely like plants, like I can't even think of the name of the plant now.
It's okay.
Just big leaves, just big green, like juicy leaves.
Okay. And these leaves feel the same as this red moving strip?
No, the red's kind of been and gone now. It's more just green and it's just like leaves and trees and stuff, but mainly just like big, really fresh green leaves.
Mm-hmm. So just notice for me whether it's these kind of big, fresh green leaves or the kind of red moving strip that needs your attention the most.
The red's pretty much gone now. So mainly it's just the green.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Notice how you feel towards these green leaves.
It's like fresh and new and clean and
And as you
nature.
notice that it's fresh and new and clean, how do you feel towards it?
Excited.
Mm.
That's a
Oh,
nice feeling.
yeah, okay. So you notice that excited. Try this out for me. Send some of that excitement towards it and see what happens. You can send that in.
The red comes back.
Okay. So what I'm hearing there is we might have a couple of parts, right? Okay. We've got these green leaves. We've got this red strip across the eye. See if either one is calling you the most or needs your attention. You might just ask as well if one might be willing to wait whilst we spend time with one first.
It's a bit of both. They don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Let me just ask inside and without trying to think of the answer, would one be willing to wait while we spend time with just one of them?
I think the red can wait. The red's a bit pushy. So the green was like, nah, I'll go first.
That's great. Yeah. So noticing that, yeah, I'll go first energy. Okay. So just thank the red, the moving strip of red, for that space. You might let it know we will come back to it and check in with it a bit later. Yeah. Okay, so noticing the green, fresh new leaves, right? And notice now how you feel towards it.
It's like really uplifted.
Mm.
You know, when you walk into a forest or you walk into around nature and you like, it's almost like the same with the beach, you know, when you like take a big inhale and you feel really good.
Mm-hmm. So you're noticing that it's like this big inhale, uplifting. How do you feel towards that?
At peace.
Okay.
Like, oh, I've arrived. I'm here.
Yeah. Now, I wonder if it might be okay to share that with it. Like in a sense of peace, I've arrived. Send that towards it. And see what happens inside when you do that. And what's happening as you do that.
It just feels like I'm meant to be there.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay. Now I'm wondering whether this sort of green, fresh leaves, whether it knows you're there with it. Does it have a sense of you?
Is that a question? Are you saying, am I there with it?
Mhm. Yeah, does it have a sense of you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So you might just keep sending out that piece towards it and see if it can start to notice that this is being shared with it by you.
I think before it was more me observing it rather than being there with it.
Yeah. And so keep sending that piece towards it. What happens inside?
Feel the energy around the heart.
That's great.
Feel something anyway.
Yeah.
It just feels something there. It feels good.
Yeah. So you're noticing that energy around the heart as you share that. Try this question inside. How long have you had this part? How long have these fresh green leaves been here?
I think for a long time.
Really long time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, try this question. What age does it think you are? You can try not to think, but waiting for an answer.
This is going to be the first number I got in my head was 21.
Yeah, okay. So thanks to 21, right? Okay. So see if you might like to start to share a little bit of an update with it. So that might be things like your real age, might be the resources that you have now. It could be energy or presence. Start to share out that you're not 21 anymore.
I want to say I feel clearer or lighter, or I can feel energy moving around my entire body. It's still coming from the heart, but I can feel this energy running through my body.
Yeah. To see what it might be like to keep sharing that update, right? That you're an adult now, you might share your real age, other aspects of your life.
I think there was like a disconnect because it's kind of like, really? Are you that old? Have you done that? Like, I think there was that disconnect. It feels like now I'm talking to it and saying, this is where I'm at, this is what I do. And it's like, really?
So it feels what? It's not sure, it's a bit surprised.
Yeah, just almost in disbelief. Just like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's not where I thought
Yeah.
you would. I don't know. There's just that. It's not doubt, but it's just like, oh, okay. I didn't know that I have. You're 43 now, and you like. It just feels like there's been a gap.
Yeah. Can you let it know that makes sense, right? To feel a little bit of disbelief about that. You might let it know that it can have all the time it needs to get used to this, to get to know you better, and to learn to trust you. See what it makes of that.
It's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I'm wondering now if there's any information it has for you. What's its role and what's it doing inside?
When you said any information for you, words came up. Smash it. That was the first thing that came up. Was smash it.
Okay. Yeah, smash it. I'm wondering if it might be willing to share more about what's it mean by smash it. What's it smashing?
I think as in just move forward, just go, go, move forward.
Saying
And
move
that's when that
forward.
as soon as I said go, move forward, now it's just all gone red. The green's gone now.
Okay.
It's all gone.
Yeah, that's great to notice. So this red part, just ask why it stepped in now.
It's powerful. It's power.
Mm-hmm. And is the smash it, move forward, go, go, go? Is that from it? Is that it?
No, that came from the other part.
Ah, okay. So it doesn't like this smash it, move forward, go, go, go energy.
Uh, yeah, when I said that, interesting, that came forward. But this is still feels like power and strength.
Mm.
And does feel good. It doesn't feel like bad or evil or like anything like that. It still feels good.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm wondering why it kind of stepped in now when this other part said smash it, move forwards.
Mm-hmm.
What's it concerned about?
It's gone now.
Okay.
It's just gone. Gone.
Just thank you for that space. And see if you can notice that heart energy that gave you these smash it, move forward words, right? You're able to notice that. Smash it, the energy that was moving around your body.
It's interesting, eh? It's just all calm now, like that little spike of whatever it was. I'm like, it's everything's just chill and calm and almost like white.
Okay. So I'm hearing perhaps this could be another part that's just kind of giving you some distance here.
I'm sure. Yep, bring it in. What's this white part saying?
Okay. So just kind of maybe notice this white part, right? That's coming. This calm.
It's like white curtains and a white couch.
Yeah. Notice. And I wonder if it has a concern about this like energy around the body, this smash it and move forwards.
Everything just feels quite neutral. That's the best way. I'm just trying to feel.
Is it okay with you that it's here, that it's neutral?
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so let it know inside. Send that inside. It's okay that you're here, that it's neutral, that it's calm.
And then I've got purple and navy, white.
In a sec, just gonna let the parts know that we're gonna be wrapping up in a moment, right? I just want you to see if there's anything that they might need you to do or to hear from you.
And they just said, just be you.
That's great. And then see.
Got a bit of a black shadow happening. Hello.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah, saying that hello.
Hello. What's happening now? I don't know if it's because my eyes have been closed for a while. Your eyes start playing tricks on you. I'm thinking, what am I seeing? But yeah, it's definitely kind of like a black shadow. I'm like, oh, we don't need that.
Yeah, just send some acknowledgement to that black shadow, right? And then I'm going to ask you to invite these parts that we've met to kind of settle somewhere. And that can be like somewhere back into your body. It can be, they can come home with you or stay close. They might want to go on an adventure and anywhere in time and space. They might like to settle. Okay, and then just notice if there's any questions, comments, or concerns from inside. I'm really done today.
It's interesting because I've just slowly opened my eyes and I just feel a sense of strength.
Mm.
Just a sense of what's the word? Not like I got this, but like not in the knowing. Just the word that keeps coming up is strength.
That's amazing. Yeah. And see if you can, I know eyes are open, but if you can send inside some thanks, right, to everyone that you met today, just an appreciation of thanks for them having come up and allowed you to get to know them.
Interesting, because it's kind of talking to colors. I don't know, is that kind of something that can come from this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I wasn't expecting that. And as I just closed my eyes going, because I'm a very visual person, I was like, thanks. And I was like, actually, I'm talking to colors.
Yeah.
And I know there's no right or wrong as anything, but yeah, I just felt then it was just, this whole experience was just very color based for me.
Yeah, which is amazing. It's amazing, right? Yeah.
It
Oh,
was
that.
all cool and weird all at the same time.
Yeah.
And because then I was listening to, as a therapist, also listening to your voice and the pitch of your voice and the cue of your voice is like, what does that mean? Yep, okay. So at the same time, I had to push that out, listening to your verbal tone and your language and how your words, I had to tune that out at the same time as everything else I had to tune out to be present. So it was interesting. If I wasn't a therapist, I wouldn't have even have noticed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting to notice, isn't it?
Mm.
So what was it like to spend time with those?
Yeah, I don't think me a few years ago would have been able to connect to that. I think closing my eyes and just being at peace with myself, my mind would have been, what's for dinner? What am I doing tomorrow? Oh yeah, I've got to do this. Oh no, I'm doing this thing again. I've got to listen because Caroline's talking to me. But in this moment in time, it's a practice, and I've gotten quite good at when you say close your eyes and think, I can kind of go there. Quite quick. But I know in that time I had to work at it. Like I had to be in it. I had to block. I had to work at blocking out hearing your tone and interpreting that. And like, no, I'm not in a therapy session. I can just be within myself and just acknowledging all the stuff that came up where for me, a lot of my life, all this stuff was blocked out because I didn't realize what gifts and what things I had and that I could do this kind of stuff. So I think part of me is just tuning into that as well and going, this is okay if I close my eyes and I see a color, I feel something, I can say it. Where, as you said before, with the inner child or the exile, like no one's there to support you. So when you feel something or you think something, you block it, you put it away.
Yeah. And just to name a couple of things in that, if that's okay, that like we don't have to close our eyes to do IFS. We can be completely just open and speaking, etc. Like literally, we talking right now, a part of me is talking to a part of you. And if we have an awareness of that, we're doing IFS.
Yeah, it's still buzzy though. I'm talking to you and you're talking to me, and I'm like, okay, what part of me is talking? Like that really gets into you really get into your head, don't you?
Yeah. And then also because I'm hearing there that perhaps some people could have a concern about introspection. Like if I go inside, it's going to be too loud. Well, then we start there, right? We start with the part who doesn't feel like it can focus inside even. And, a lot of people don't start that. They don't start by going straight in, closing eyes, focusing on sensations. That can be too much. We can start at a different place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other amazing thing was that your parts were so colorful, right? And just to completely normalize that parts can show up in any way. So some people's parts show up only through their body as a body sensation. Sometimes it's like a thought, it's like a voice in their mind, right? Sometimes it could be pictures and they can see what's going on and like literally see, say, these experiences or the parts. So it can really show up in different ways. What I'm hearing from you, from your experience, if it's okay to name, was a bit of what IFS would call a polarization. Okay, two parts who for some reason are in some sort of dynamic. And that's the dance that I heard between like the red and the green. Okay. Usually with a polarization, there's more that we can do with that to separate out and hear each part separately. But usually there's a bit of a concern. If I listen to the red part, then it's going to take over and that's going to be too much for the system in whatever way, and vice versa. So how does that land?
Yeah, I think the polarizing, maybe I'm just going to places I've never been to before in all aspects of my life. So maybe that's the dance within me is like, you can do it. No, you can't. You can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's no, I'm not following any example. I'm just kind of feeling my way around.
Yeah. And polarizations are amazing to work with IFS, and things like you might see polarizations around, say if you're trying to change, there's always a part who wants to change and a part who doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Say with nutrition, there might be a binging part and a restricting part, polarized, don't like each other. There might be, we say with anxiety, there might be an anxious part and a part who's trying to rationalize it. So those sort of like parts who sit on the two different sides. By the way, I've never normally interpret a session like this with a client. It's just to map it onto what we were talking about before, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Your white part sounded like a bit of a distancing part. So
yeah,
a part that came in and just went, I'm going to create distance. Sometimes we notice it as a block or a disconnect or a dissociation or a numbing, or it can feel like a nothingness. And again, that's still a part that's saying like, I'm not comfortable with you getting close to whatever we were close to, which is amazing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Mm.
So you're just mentioning that if people were listening to this or they reach out to you and do a bit of IFS work, not necessarily what I went through with you today is how they're going to feel or speak. And I think it's important that people, if they resonate with the top tier and then the exile and the shame, just for an example, it's a different way of processing things to give it a go. So I don't want people to listen to what I've said and being like, oh, well, I can't focus for that long, or I might not be able to hear anything or see anything or whatever. I think it's really important that this was just a demo of kind of I interpreted something, and it's a way of maybe if you've been working on something to change or you feel stuck, have you got some examples of why people come and see you for IFS, just so people can resonate going, yes, I understand the tiers. I like the way that it looks at different parts, that if I've done therapy before or I've done some healing, I haven't touched on this, but if someone's listening to this and be like, is it for me or is it not for me? Like, is there something that you can say that you work with clients that are going through XYZ, or you find it common for anxiety, or is there anything that you can help people that are like, just let me know, is this for me or not for me?
Yeah. I think there's very few instances where I'd say it's not for you. Remembering as well that like insight and turning the intention side with the eyes closed is not the only way to do it. It's not necessarily the place to start. It doesn't have to look like that. So I work a lot around stress, anxiety, overwhelm, burnout. I see a lot of clients doing this around, I think because where I was before, around eating. So eating distresses, relationship to food stuff, trauma and addictions. So PTSD, CPTSD, depression, it's got some amazing evidence that's building up as very effective for treating that and for healing with that. So there's not a huge amount that it's not helpful for.
Right. But that's really helpful, because I know someone will be listening to this going, I like the idea of it. I don't want anyone to be afraid of it. It's actually a really nice modality and it's something different. yeah, I really liked that. It was something that was very, I could feel all the different parts.
Mm.
And it
Yeah.
was interesting because your brain was trying to, the whole time my brain was like, yeah, what's happening now? What are you doing now? What's this? What are you doing? Trying to judge it. Like it was just going 100 miles an hour, trying to judge everything, trying to label everything. Even though I've done the work that I don't overthink anymore, my brain is still my brain. It still functions the same as everyone else's, that at 100 miles an hour of what color? What does this mean? Oh, there's another color. What's this? What's this? So it's always like that noise, but at the same time, I can keep it very calm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's important to name that, if anyone's interested in, say, going into IFS, that there might be a thinking part, there might be a part that this is weird, there might be a part that goes like, am I going to be able to do this?
Yeah.
Are they going to speak to me? Am I going to hear anything from my parts? Am I going to be doing this wrong? That's also a common one. And I just say that's where we start. No matter what those are, that's always where we start. Yeah.
I like that. And it just gives people time to listen to themselves and be with themselves. How often, in a guided, safe way, how often are you sitting with yourself by yourself doing this stuff? You're not. People run away to avoid it.
Yeah. And thinking parts, all the rational parts of it, they never attempt to get there by themselves. That's kind of like what I'd say talking therapies or counseling does, right? It's quite thinking much older parts of us who are trying to figure things out and talk through things, which is helpful to a point, but thinking parts can never get to the place where other parts of us have actually experienced.
Yeah, it's interesting you saying that because I'm not a clinical counts therapist and I don't work like most therapists. And you've really uncovered that on a personal level through talking to you, is I actually walk with my clients to that pain point, and I didn't realize I did until you're reflecting it back to me now. I don't just do the thinking with them, I do all of the part. It's so weird. It's like that's how I do my work with my clients intuitively.
And that was another pull I felt towards IFS, because I've done counseling in the past and I felt like it never touched. Like it was helpful until the point that it wasn't, because it never touched some of the subconscious automatic patterns.
Yes.
I could talk all I liked about them, but it wasn't changing those things. So again, perhaps someone who's been in talking therapies for many years actually might have a system who looks like they've never done any work inside, because they've only ever worked with, say, a part or two in talking about things.
Wow, this is like fascinating. So, if people want to find you and like just ask you more questions, I'm sure they have more questions. Yeah, where's the best place for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I'm on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find me at fresh.air.and, and my website as well, which is freshairand.com.
Excellent. And I'm going to wrap up the podcast by asking you, what does self-care look and feel like to you at the moment?
Two things here for me. Self-care for me, brought back to its basics, is meeting basic needs: physical, emotional, relational, mental. And I'd bring that down to things like going to the toilet when you need to go to the toilet, eating regularly enough. Because I know, for instance, for me personally, my overworking parts can put stuff like that off, which means I'm neglecting actual physical, emotional needs. And self-care, I think, could be prettied up. And at its core, I think it's meeting our primary needs, which are...
Yep. Great examples. If you need to pee, you go to pee. Like that's the thing.
Yeah. And relational needs, emotional needs as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the second part in that as well is what self-care is: listening to both sides. Because usually if I'm thinking of a self-care action, be that big or small, going to the toilet, taking a bath, I don't know, usually there's I want to do it versus I don't want to do it. And a lot of us know stuff that's good for us, right? But we don't necessarily do it. Polarization.
Yes.
Who wants to do it and why? Who doesn't want to do it and why. And listening to that
there you go,
changes that.
guys. You basically got, I feel like they've got more than one podcast in this episode. Like, they feel like
Yeah, should have taken 3 or 4 hours.
such a good juicy episode, because there's so much to it that people can take from it. And wow, thank you for introducing me to IFS. It's I'm still struggling to say it at the end. IFS. I don't know what that is. But thank you for bringing that to us and to me, and sharing what you do. And we need you. Like, now more than ever, people out there are struggling and are just so disconnected from themselves and from people. I was talking to a gentleman today, and he was just saying to me that he sees a lot of people on a daily basis. He was a business owner, and he just can't believe the disconnect that people have with each other and people have with themselves. And I was like, yeah, the last few years haven't helped, but I feel like it's really created distance to people that are doing this type of stuff, and the people that aren't doing this type of stuff and that need it. So I just want to say, like, thank you for being on my podcast, but also I can't wait for people to connect and talk to you and find out more about this internal family systems therapy. And because when it says internal family systems, straight away I think of, like, it's interesting. I thought, is it to do with your parents, or blended families, or like conflict within a family? But it's interesting when you talk about all the moving parts. There's a mum and a dad and a grandma and a granddad and cousins and aunties and uncles. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And its name comes from it was a systems therapist, a family systems therapist, who called Richard Schwartz, and that's where the name came from. He had his background in that. So
wow,
yeah, as you say, much needed. And thank you so much for the time and space to talk about IFS and to get it out there.
Anytime, please.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope this conversation has added value to your self-care journey and inspired positive changes in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing it with a friend who might benefit from this episode. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or on your favourite podcast platform to stay up to date on future episodes. Your support means the world to me. I genuinely love hearing from you, so please take a moment to leave a review. Let me know which part of today's episode resonated with you the most. Your feedback guides the direction of this podcast, and I really appreciate each and every single one of you for being a part of this community. To fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. To find out a bit more about the Studio Chat podcast, head over to my Instagram page, Studio Chat Podcast, or if you want to find out a bit more about my counselling private practice, head over to Instagram on self_care_studio, or head over to my website, selfcarebybarbarathompson.com.au. I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until next time, take care of yourselves and keep embracing the journey of self-discovery.